The New York Rangers have a golden opportunity sitting in front of them, and with the schedule not getting any easier down the stretch, fans are looking for a few players in particular to rise to the occasion and bring this team to the playoffs. We're going to break down how they can do that in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do that, we have a very special announcement to make, as it is that time of year. We're kicking off a March Madness bracket for the channel. We've partnered with the Hot Takes app and other digest channels for this event. It's completely free to sign up. Just download the Hot Takes app, click the March Madness banner at the top, and under groups, select the Digest Media pool. This is really exciting as there's over $25,000 in prizes to be won, and since there's a much smaller pool of people participating, there's a real chance to win big. So check out the link below in the pinned comment or the description, or scan the QR code on your screen to download the app, and make sure to use promo code DIGEST. It is cap sensitive, so DIGEST in all caps to get some exclusive perks when signing up. The main event round starts on March 16th, and if you have any trouble signing in, there is an email in the description that you can email for help, and we'll get you some help to log in. Thank you again to Hot Takes for partnering with us on this incredible opportunity, and we look forward to seeing you all in the Digest Media pool for your March Madness bracket. Thank you once again to the Hot Takes app for partnering with us on this fun opportunity, and we look forward to seeing all of you and your March Madness brackets in the Digest Media pool. But let's get right into the topic of today. The Rangers have a golden opportunity sitting in front of them. Even though they squandered a few points last week, they still have an opportunity to make the playoffs at this point. So a few things to get to before we look at the standings and all the implications heading into this weekend, because it's going to be a big one, and not just this weekend, the next couple of weeks, man. Like, the schedule does not get any easier for this team, and this is from NYR Louis, and he goes on to say that himself, and honestly a lot of people on Twitter and even myself lately, hating on Peter Laviolette a bit, like a little bit, some weird decisions going on, right? For sure. But when you take a look at some of the advanced analytics from not just last night, but the last couple games, they are limiting scoring chances and high danger scoring chances. And I was talking about how, a couple games ago, that was not the case. And that's been, the case for the majority of this season. But the last two games in particular, they've been limiting them a little bit more, which is encouraging. That's for sure. That's a step in the right direction. And obviously they won last night's game. And even if they lost in overtime, I was thinking to myself, at least you get a point. At least you're only 1 point behind now, but it would be nice to get 2 points after you squandered 4 points this last weekend. And especially a 4-point swing with the Columbus Blue Jackets, which you have another game coming up. We'll get to that. So they are limiting scoring chances the last two games, which I think is a very encouraging sign. And there's a couple other things we got to mention too. I mean, K'Andre Miller, for as much flack as he gotten this season from myself, from the fan base, he has stepped up in a big way since Adam Fox has been out. He's been playing a lot better. His decision making, especially against Ottawa last week, I mean, that's still there, right? Like, we know that that's still there. Some odd decision making, like probably make a pass when the guy's wide open to his tape, like probably do that, right? But nonetheless, he's played a combined 58 shifts, a team high against top lines, against the elite Jets and the Wild, the Minnesota Wild, who are a great team in their own right this season, on the road nonetheless. So he's leading all defense in game score, and expected goals, shot share, and a bunch of other advanced analytics. So pretty good stuff from K'Andre Miller there with Will Borgen. I was going to say Will Borgen, but obviously his defense partner there. So good stuff from the two of them. Will Borgen's been as steady as they come since he's come over to from Seattle. He's obviously earned that contract extension. So some good stuff in terms of advanced analytics from those guys. Now, JT Miller, since coming over as well, he's a big part of this and kind of putting them back into the playoff push. Yes, some disappointing performances the last little while, like especially last week, and I'm going to keep referencing that. But he's over a point per game player since coming to the New York Rangers in that trade in late January. He has 7 goals and 17 points in 16 games played since coming over. And he's also added a physical aspect to this team. Not just his own game. We know what he brings to the table to the team. He brought like this new kind of way of playing for some of these guys, and you can see Will Cooley has always had it in him, but he's playing to another level at this point. When you take a look at his stats this season, as you can remember when we broke it down when he first got traded over, a bit of a lackluster season for JT Miller, but if you look at his stats now, he's almost at a point a game for the season. He's putting together a great run here with the New York Rangers, and happy birthday to JT Miller, as I see here, 32 years old today. So Good stuff there from JT Miller. So 52 points in 56 games. We know what he brings to the table. He's been elite for this team since coming over, and he's reactivated Mika Zibanejad. Since coming over, Zibanejad has statistically, I know it's going to be hard to believe for some people, statistically been one of the best players in the entire league. So he needs to continue to keep that up. And this is what we're looking at now. This is the opportunity ahead of this team and what they need to capitalize on, because this is the current Eastern Conference playoff standings. As you can see here, I've been talking about it. New Jersey won again last night, I should say, and they're keeping their lead in that final divisional playoff spot. Obviously, Ottawa's there. You squandered 2 points to them last week. You should have had 2 points in that game in regulation. The Columbus Blue Jackets, too, you should have had points there. Now, it's your next game. You play Columbus next if you're the New York Rangers on Saturday night. So that is a huge game. I mean, you can catapult yourselves into that spot. Obviously, there's some weird stuff going on with games in hand. There's tiebreakers involved. So it's going to really come down to the last minute, I think, this season. It's going to come down to the last game, the last week, which is going to be fun. But in these games where you play teams that are either ahead of you or in the mix with you, you have to win these games. So this is a must-win on Saturday. I keep saying every game is a must-win. If you're playing a Western Conference opponent, which is coming up for the Rangers, if you lose that game, it's not okay, but there's teams around the league that you're fighting for this positioning with that will lose as well, right? Like, they're going to have some losses in there. And when you're the Rangers, you got to make up some ground on some of these teams. You got to beat the Senators, which you didn't last week. You got to beat the Blue Jackets, which you didn't last week. But you can this Saturday and, give yourself an opportunity to catapult into the playoff picture. Montreal, I've said that I just don't know if they have the juice, right? They're kind of in the mix there. Lane Hudson's having a great season. I just don't know if they're going to end up in the playoffs. Detroit is right there as well. I believe that they are definitely in the mix. So it's going to be very interesting. Columbus, a good story. But the one other thing I'm looking for is Ottawa, probably. At this point, you never know, but I don't know if they're going to get a divisional playoff spot. The Rangers, if they continue to go along here and with Columbus, like, this is why it's such a big game. New Jersey no longer has a first-line center. They've lost 2 of their best defensemen to injury for the rest of the season, including playoffs. So that might catch up to them at some point. Yes, they won last night against the Edmonton Oilers, but that may catch up to them, and you could possibly squeak into that last divisional playoff spot. So that's a massive opportunity. And when you look at the schedule coming up here, does not get any easier. You got Columbus, that's a must-win game. Back-to-back at home against the Edmonton Oilers, that is tough. Then you're playing the Calgary Flames, who are in the playoff mix. They're fighting for their playoff lives. The Toronto Maple Leafs want to get back on track. You got the Vancouver Canucks in the same boat as the Calgary Flames. They're right there fighting for some wild card spots in the Western Conference, similarly to the New York Rangers. Then you go on a Western road trip. The schedule does not get any easier at all. Like, these are all teams that are looking for big wins. So it does not get any easier for this team. They have to put up some big performances. Last thing I wanted to mention before we wrap up here, Carson Soucy, since coming over, I'm going to give him a 5-game buffer since the trade. That's what I'm going to do. That's rule of thumb for me, at least. We'll see what he does after 5 games. He's still trying to get acclimated to the team, to the system. And when I say system, maybe lack thereof, because obviously the defense hasn't been great the last little while. And the other thing is Zach Jones. He's really stepped. I thought this was interesting. If you want to pause and read this, year after year in his development, he's actually decreasing, and it may have something to do with the coaching and his deployment and his development. So I thought that was very interesting. So pause and take a read if you want. But again, I thought that he's taken a hold of this opportunity where he's barely played all year. And then after having a good performance last year, and then now with Adam Fox out, he's put on power play 1 and he's given these opportunities, and I think he's actually making the most of them. So I just wanted to shout out that. I know a lot of people are not as high on Zach Jones as I am. This is a great quote from the UMass head coach, Greg Carville. And he said, "Poor Zach Jones, this guy's so good." I saw online that somebody said, how come this guy never plays? And then he gets first-line power play and 20-plus minutes when Adam Fox goes down. How do you go from not playing to being the top guy? It doesn't make any sense. So I always thought that was really weird, too, the last week or so since this has been happening. So very odd, but I'm glad that he's making the most of this opportunity. And speaking of opportunities, we're kicking off a March, have a golden one right in front of them. They have to win tomorrow's game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. But I want to hear what you have to say in the comments about everything that's been going on. Big win last night. Big goal in overtime from Braden Schneider. That was maybe a bit unexpected. It was a really nice goal, and I think Rangers fans are just kind of expecting losses at this point, but they're definitely still in the mix. They're going to do this to us until the end of the season. It's going to be exciting, but I want to hear what you have to say in the comments. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.